But first, more than 20 years after the murder of his wife, a Wisconsin man is getting a second chance to prove his innocence. Our Anjanette Levy is live with the latest in the case of Mark Jensen. And welcome back. A Wisconsin man serving a life sentence for the murder of his wife is getting a new trial because of a letter from the grave. This after the U.S. Supreme Court refuses to hear an appeal by prosecutors. Law and Crime's Anjanette Levy is here now with more about the case that's garnered national attention. Anjanette?
Brian, Mark Jensen's appeals have been heard by state and federal courts since his conviction in 2008. Now, more than 20 years after he was convicted of murdering his wife, he is getting a new trial. Jensen appeared in court in Kenosha County, Wisconsin, with his lawyers this week. He has always maintained he did not murder his wife, Julie, in their Kenosha County, Wisconsin home back in 1998, and that she took her own life and framed her husband. Prosecutors say Mark Jensen poisoned his wife with antifreeze and smothered her because he was angry about a brief affair she had had. At Jensen's new trial, prosecutors will be barred from using a letter that Julie Jensen gave to her neighbor in which she wrote that she would never commit suicide and that if she ever died, it was because her husband killed her. The argument over this letter went all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, which decided not to hear the case last week. The Wisconsin Supreme Court had already said that prosecutors using the letter and voicemails that Julie Jensen left for a police officer violated Mark Jensen's right to confront his accusers. Interestingly enough, the judge who allowed that letter and the voicemails into evidence was Judge Bruce Schrader, who presided over Kyle Rittenhouse's trial last year.
There's a small segment of the community that thinks he's innocent. There's another small segment that throw around conspiracy theories about Julie framing her husband and then committing suicides. I mean, there's all those things, accusations that come with a case like this. But I think the vast majority of the community thinks that due to the evidence, even above and beyond the letter from the grave and the voicemails, that there's enough evidence to say he's guilty.
A new judge is actually assigned to this case at this point, and a motion hearing is scheduled for November of this year, and then the new trial for Mark Jensen is scheduled for January of 2023. Brian?
Thanks, Anjanette. Let's bring back co-host Terry Austin and legal analyst Dina Dahl. Dina, the murder in this case dates back to 1998, more than 20 years before the new trial is set to begin. What kind of difficulties does that present for either side?
I mean, it definitely presents difficulties. Some of the witnesses may have passed away. Memories may have, they've forgotten things in the meantime. And also the emotion of the witnesses, of people who were connected to the victim, that's, passed as well, in terms of the prosecution case. But I also think in these 20 years, society has gotten a lot more awareness around domestic violence cases. And so that could help the the prosecution.
And Terry, if the prosecution is barred from introducing the so-called letter from the grave, how do they build a case?
Well, certainly that letter made it easier, Brian, but if they're not able to introduce that letter, they're going to need to focus on physical evidence, and they're going to have to get witness testimonies. And Dina's right, there won't be that many witnesses around. But as far as the physical evidence, I think the medical examiner is going to be very important. One of the things that we know is that she was poisoned and that she suffocated. The medical examiner is going to have to focus on that suffocation because you cannot suffocate yourself. Your body is going to immediately respond to that and stop the suffocation. So I think if they focus on that medical, if they get witnesses in who can talk about what they knew at the time, and then, of course, the defense can always cross-examine, I think they might be able to prove the case.
And Anjanette, this case seems to be full of surprises, unusual developments, conspiracy theories.
Most definitely. And, lots of conspiracy theories out there, and a lot of people, some people actually in the community, thinking that this was some sort of plot by the wife. But then there are a lot of people who think that Mark Jensen was guilty. So this is actually the third judge handling this case, Brian. The second judge assigned to the case actually reinstated the conviction after a new trial was ordered. He did that without a new trial. And then, of course, that judge was overturned as well. So this is a case that's got a very long history with a lot of twists and turns.
And we'll follow it closely here. Thanks very much.